Education, youth, and stewardship. Wow, it's a great combination there. Pat is treasurer. Anywhere else you serve, Pat? Community service, excellent. You guys had a big day yesterday after church. Give me your first name, if you don't mind. Carol. Eh, That's all right. But when I define leadership this morning, you may not have a title, but you're still a leader, at least at the church. We're going to define that in a moment. Give me your first name. Latreia. One more time. Demetria. And Demetria, what do you serve at? Church clerk? Okay, great. Demetria keeps all the legal records of the church. No matter what you say, Demetria's records are the legal ones that everyone comes to, and praise God for you, Demetria, this morning. Give me your first name again. Nathan. What do you serve at, Nathan? Member of the congregation, but you're a leader. Glad to hear this morning. It's been a powerful day. Give me your first name, if you would. Almy. Okay, A-L-M-Y. A-L-E. I-E. Okay. Oh, yeah, yeah. Okay, okay. I got that. Great. It's all right. With their children's, you have to be creative now. I'm more creative than ever in this environment. Glad you're here. Yes. You're a member of the body of Christ. And this is where you're a regular attender at. You are a member of this church, okay? Your technical stuff that Demetria will handle will come later, but you are here, and we want to thank our AV team for being here bright and early, making sure we're set to go. You guys are blessed with a crack awesome AV team. These men are on it. And are there any women on your team? Okay, you need to add some on the team, Okay, all right. We believe in diversity, all of that. I just want to say a word again about your amazing pastor. You never miss your well until your water until your well runs dry. And take care of this pastor. I want you to hear me, everybody. There are others who want him. His commitment is to this church, but never take it for granted what you have. As you know, the Mt Tahoma, if you look across not just the black churches, but across all churches in the Washington Conference, you can't tell about a pandemic, but this is probably one of the most vibrant churches in Washington Conference. You are now that have the highest attendance of all black churches here, Mt Tahoma. And when everyone is here, you got a couple of hundred here. You are now probably in the top 10 of the more vibrant churches in this conference, and so you have now become a central player that you set the pace for other churches off weekend after weekend. In that, when you look at your broadcast quality in other parts of the country, it is comparable to the tops. And I just to affirm you and celebrate you on that. Also, you're blessed in this congregation with just downright good people that I met yesterday. Just warm and caring and down to earth. And truly, there's a spirit that exudes in this place. Sometimes when you're around it all the time, you can take it for granted. When you're around it, it becomes common to you. But when guests come in, they feel a vibe here that I think as you nurture it, as you grow it, it only becomes much more attractive and attractional to those who are beyond these doors. What is the black population here in Tacoma? What percentage of the population? 21%? Is it that high? So I would think that the Caucasians are one. I would think Asians are second. And then Hispanics. And then blacks. Okay. That's what most cities on the West Coast, that's how you're going to find that. But remember, you're not just, as you saw yesterday, on a regular basis, you have a great diversity in this worship center. So you're not just trying to reach one population. You're out to cast the net wide to reach everyone for Jesus Christ. How many of you, I asked this yesterday, I want to take a poll among the leaders. How many of you in here love God? Okay? And do not raise your hand on this one, because I don't want to put anyone in the spot. How many of you are saved this morning? Don't raise your hand. How many of you are saved? That you know that you know that you know that you're saved. Okay, you did it anyhow. This is great. And there is nothing like having leaders who are saved. And how many of you are filled with the Holy Spirit? That you ask for that indwelling every single day in your life. Because remember, when you serve, you don't serve out of drudgery or grudgingly. Listen to this, everybody. When you are filled with the Spirit, listen to this language, you serve in the overflow. In other words, you are filled, but then in the overflow of that means no one has to push you, no one has to press you, no one has to guilt trip you. You do it as unto the Lord. Who says amen to that? So, as I mentioned yesterday, everything we talk about today, even though it is church leadership, you'll be able to use it tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. How many of you are managers, supervisors on your jobs? Raise your hands high. Okay, a few of you in this room. Amen. And how many of you are looking to be managers or leaders on your job eventually? How many want to raise on your job? How about that? Okay, I thought I would get some on that this morning. I think the screen went back down again, and we can get the screen back up. I want to begin this morning with a presentation called The Power of Grit and Resilience. By the way, the best definition for leadership I've ever heard, and Demetria, what is your definition for leadership before I give mine? In short, how would you define leadership? Speak up through your mask, okay? What, say it again? Guidance, okay. Pat, how would you define leadership?
Well, a role where you're exerting inspirational influence.
A role where you are exerting inspirational what?
Influence.
Influence, okay. Let me stop right there because I want to use your last word. John Maxwell, who is a guru for leadership, and of course, I learned about him about 20-something years ago. He's gotten older now, not as much out front. But he gave a definition for leadership that I grabbed hold on to and understood it instinctively as soon as he said it. He says the best definition for leadership is a one-word, hey, Dr. Lewis, a one-word definition, and that is influence, a one-word definition. So glad to see our coordinator here this morning. Praise God. This is an inside joke, but he would get it. I allow him to live in my house, so every once a year I call him and say, "You taking care of the place? You make some changes, you call me first." And so let me give you the honestly. I break a commandment every time I come to Seattle because I want to go to the Gene's house, and I covet at that point. He has a water view. In my house, we have a bathtub view. A little slightly different with this one. But Gene Lewis has been a friend of mine about 20-something years. In fact, we had a great conversation before he went into Emerald City, coming from Spokane. And now he's been there 25 years now? 28 years. He was a young man at that time, young man. And he could say, And I was a younger man at that time. But, he is significantly older than me. You should know that. He used to help me cross the street. Remember that, Gene? But I love him with all of my heart. I have high and deep respect for Gene Lewis. And I've watched him over the years, far away and close up. And man, I have the highest respect for you. But you knew that already. But I figured I'd say it for the audience in case you want to give me an offering for saying all of that this morning. Here we go. So some years ago, about 3 years ago, I was watching YouTube. And on YouTube, you can pick up what are called TED Talks. Has anyone seen a TED Talk before? Okay. And Pastor Paul, I was watching a TED Talk one day about a young lady named Angela Duckworth. She had written a book called Grit, The Power of Passion and Perseverance. I never heard of Angela Duckworth. But when she started talking, she just pulled me into this, and I was on the edge of my seat in my home office looking at this on YouTube, and I could not let it go. As soon as she finished, I went on Amazon, and I bought the book, The Power of Grit, The Power of Passion and Perseverance. By the way, I'm going to be recommending books all day long. Look at me, everybody. The reason that I recommend books is that a leader is a reader. A leader is a reader. That means that you're constantly reading in order to grow, in order to develop. And one of the valuable things you can do is read books. They're found that when people leave college or leave high school, and certainly college, they rarely pick up books again. And one of the things that you want to do is that you want to have a steady diet of reading and growing and developing, whether that's a hard copy or whether that's on your Kindle or some other way that you are accessing books. I have a lot on my Kindle, on my phone, but I'm back now to wanting a hard copy. There's something about holding that physical book in your hand. Like your pastor, he's young. He's never held a real book. His stuff is always online, always reading from Kindle. Pastor, let me show you what a book looks like, Now, that's not that he don't read. He reads all the time. He just don't have any hard copies in his house. He's not sure what a phone booth is. He's never seen a phone booth. He's young. But the fact is that he's an erudite man because he reads. And when I got this book, everybody, I could not put it down. I'm trying to recommend it to you because by the time I finish in a few minutes, you're going to rush out at breakpoint this morning and buy this book. So here it is. So Angela Duckworth, she doesn't look like what her name sounds like. So Angela Duckworth, and okay. Oh, yeah, there it is. Okay. I think I'm not that far away from it. So I'm going to need you, Frederick, to advance it on that down arrow. Andrea, and that's a wonderful name you have, Frederick, by the way. So her talk that day was success, why some make it and others don't. Now, this is not the fly-by-night superficial success. This is something deeper and abiding. Why some make it and others don't. So I'm going to let Frederick get back with his chair. Frederick are paying you good money to do this, you know that. And the check's in the mail. If you get it, Giselle, take half of it, if you would, okay. So when she first came out of college, she ended up, with her master's, should I say, she ended up working in an inner city public school, middle school in Chicagoland, in Chicago. And when she got there, Angela Duckworth walked in with these huge assumptions. And Frederick, go back to the beginning. Just scroll it back up. Go back one more. Go down. Yes. She came into this education environment. And folks, follow me. Don't lose me this morning. All of this is takeaway for you. She walked in that education environment in that middle school with some assumptions. Because she was a math teacher, she assumed two things. She assumed that those who had natural abilities and natural inclinations and natural leanings when it comes to math would do well in that class. But those who didn't have those natural inclinations and leans into math were going to probably congregate at the bottom of the class. She walked in, she knew that would be how it would be and how it would flow. Go, Frederick, if you would. And so at the top, she believed in these natural ability assumptions. Look at the screens now. That their natural gifts, these folk at the top who would naturally congregate at the top because they had natural abilities, that their natural gifts put them out front from the start. In other words, they're going to get out front from the beginning of the class, and they're going to stay there. This is her first time teaching. She also believed that these students who showed these early natural giftings, that their promise at the beginning would presume that they would have sustained dominance in that class. They will never go down. They will always be at the top. But there was a third natural ability assumption. Everybody listen to the terms. Natural ability assumptions. The third of those assumptions was this on the screen, everybody, and that is the non-gifted would struggle. Now, she believed that. And so she came in, first time teaching in the inner city school, first time teaching period, just coming out of grad school. She said, that's what I'm going to find when it comes to math. Go forward. So she was dealing with an anomaly, and an anomaly was this, that the students who were presumed to be naturally gifted and thus high achievers did not pan out as expected. Listen to what happened. She got into the class, Pastor Lewis, and after a couple of months, there were those students at the top who have the natural abilities, but the problem with a natural ability, you may not always try because you think it comes instinctively and easy for you. But you found some kids who were struggling at the beginning, and they began to ask for extra assignments. They began to ask the teacher for tutors. They worked at it, and they stayed at it, and they kept pushing. Notice they did not have the natural abilities. But they began to rise in their class. Next slide. Students who struggle at the beginning, now this is a setup. Notice what I'm about to say. Students who struggled at the beginning, but demonstrated, students that struggled at the beginning, but demonstrated, I'm pointing at you, Frederick, that's what I mean right there, yeah. Okay, and I'm gonna keep going fast with this now. An ability to work hard, keep going, an ability to keep going even when the task was difficult. They had an ability to work hard, notwithstanding where they started from. No, Fred, go back if you would. Yeah, go back. Yeah, just say, I'll tell you when. And they have the ability to keep going even when the task was difficult. Change, so yeah. Let me just pause and make sure, because it's going to get frustrating after a while. Oh, just watch me on this one, okay? They achieved where those with natural talent did not. Say it again. Those who were coming at the bottom, but they have the ability to work hard and to stay at it, they end up moving forward and achieving where those with natural talent did not. Guys, this has huge implications, as you're going to see in a second. Go forward, Fred, if you would. So let me give you a word about natural talent. Natural talent, go for it. Before I tell you about natural talent, let me tell you about the West Point story. But before I tell you about the West Point story, go forward, Fred. Go forward, Frederick. Yeah. Let me tell you about the McKinsey & Company. McKinsey & Company is a top leadership global consulting, business consulting firm in the world. McKinsey is at the top of the food chain. Whenever you see someone who has worked for McKinsey, you know they're bad. In fact, Angela Duckworth worked for McKinsey. About a couple of years ago, I'm sitting on the plane, and one of the people sat beside me was a McKinsey alum, and amazing, engaging conversation. McKinsey & Company is a top global management firm in the world. Go for it. So they did a white paper, and you know a white paper is a study paper, and they did a white paper or a study paper called The War for Talent. Go for it. Here's what they wrote. The companies in the modern economy rise and fall depending on their ability to attract A-level players. In the most general sense, talent is the sum of a person's abilities, his or her intrinsic gifts, skills, knowledge, experience, intelligence, judgment, attitude, character, and drive. It also includes his or her ability to learn and grow. Go forward. So McKinsey is famous, this global consulting firm, is famous for recruiting and rewarding smart men and women who are naturally talented. They seek out folk who have this supposed inherent ability. Go forward. But they forgot about Enron, McKinsey. Remember Enron was about 15, 20 years ago? This was the company that went belly up, energy company went belly up down in Texas, and they had 3 top officers who all ended up being charged and going to prison. Ken Lay was the CEO. All 3 of those guys who ran Enron in the ground, where people lost their jobs, investors lost their money, workers lost their retirements. They drove that thing in the ground. All 3 of them were McKinsey Company alumni. Because if you just got natural ability, or in this case, and no character, you got natural ability, but you don't have a tenaciousness about you. You got natural ability, but you're only riding on the natural ability. That's not going to work for you. I'm talking about leaders this morning. Go forward, Frederick. So now, let me tell you about West Point. West Point is the main military academy in the country. We have 4. There is the Army Military Academy, which is West Point. There's the Naval Military Academy, which is in Maryland, Annapolis, Maryland. There's the Air Force Military Academy out in Colorado, and there is the Coast Guard Military Academy. But this is considered the top. West Point was having a major dilemma because West Point only brings into becoming a part of that student body. They go out and they recruit, listen to this, the best of the best of the best. But something was happening. Go forward, Frederick. Let me just show you how rigorous their admissions process is. West Point admission process, at the beginning, they usually have about 14,000 applicants at West Point. They nominate about 4,000 of those 14,000. What do you mean they nominate? Go back, Frederick. Go back one. Go back one. Come back. About 4,000 they nominate. What do you mean by nominate? Remember that everyone who goes to one of the service academies has been nominated by the U.S. senator from their state. So they usually nominate about 4,000 out of the original 14,000. But only 2,500 of those 4,000 would meet the standards. It gets better than that. So they end up admitting out of an original applicant base of 14,000, they end up admitting about 1,200. So when you get there, you know that you're the best of the best of the best of the best. But buckle your seatbelt, everybody, because West Point was facing a dilemma. And that dilemma is that they discovered that they had a washout rate of that 1,400, about a quarter of them wash out in the first year of being at the academy. And the dilemma was simply this. Hold it, if we're recruiting the best of the best of the best, we need to figure out those we actually bring in, how to lower the metrics of so many washing out. But it gets go back. It gets worse than that, and that is this: that the top 25% were washing out at the same rate as the bottom 25%. Now remember, all of them were the best of the best, but even then there was strata. So at the beginning of each year, for all first-year cadets, in the summer of their first year, before they enter in as students in September, there is a summer program called Beast Barracks. Not Mark of the Beast Barracks, But Beast, that was an Adventist joke. Anyway, Beast Barracks. Beast Barracks was awful. It tested your mental in terms of your physical ability, your mental ability, your ability to morning by morning, day after day, for weeks, almost the entire summer, to stay at a pace that was just over the top. Let me explain it to you. Look at the schedule. In the morning, they woke up at 5 a.m. Keep going, Frederick. At 5:30, they formed for Reveille formation. From 5:30 to 6:55, there was physical training. From 6:55 to 7:25 was personal maintenance. From 7:30 to 8:15 is breakfast. 8:30 to 12:45, training classes. 1 to 1:45, lunch. 2 to 3:45, training classes. 4 to 5:30, organized sports. 5:30 to 5:55, personal maintenance. 6 to 6:45, dinner. 7 to 9, training classes. And then at the end of the day, commander's time. By the way, everybody, this happened 7 days a week, all throughout the summer. And they saw, Elder Lewis, their first washout during the summer. And West Point was trying to figure out, how do we up our ability to identify those who can make it, and we can lower our washout rate? So West Point had this team of psychologists. Well, hold your finger there, because after Angela Duckworth left teaching after a couple of years, she went back and got her doctorate in psychology, and she ended up becoming part of the staff of psychologists at West Point. And what they were trying to figure out, look at me, everybody, what is that secret sauce? What is that one thing that you can identify in these leaders to know that they would hang in there, they would soar, they would make it through, and also to lower the washout rate? In other words, a number of those throwing in the towel and quitting. Angela Duckworth joined this team, and she began to look at this thing. And Angela Duckworth, after a couple of years, came up, and guys, you've got to listen to me here. She came up with that one thing that if you recruited Pastor Smith based upon this one quality, the chances of them soaring and lowering that washout rate would almost be to perfection. And here is what she discovered. Go to the next slide. First of all, there was no significant difference that they found out, as I mentioned earlier, between the top 25% and the bottom 25%. In fact, all of them were recruited because they were good. But there was this washout rate again. But here's what she found. Go for it. The one quality, guys, the one quality that they found that if they recruited, and you can identify that quality right there, then they were going to make it. But Angela Duckworth also, no, go back, yeah. Sorry, Fred, okay, I'll probably call your name to do it. So there is, she also found out that those students who came from the bottom to the top also had that equality. Now, the question you should be asking right now is that if grit is the main quality that can determine your ability to soar in whatever you get into, can you teach grit? I did this with a whole group of educators, and that was the question I put out. Can you teach grit? And the answer is in the book. I'm going to give you a chance to read the book. And so don't wait for the movie, get the book on this. But let me just want to give you a preamble, a sneak preview. Yes, grit can be taught. Now, guys, you got to hear me on this one. What I'm positing to you this morning, and what Angela Duckworth found in her research, is that no matter what you want to do in life, if you have grit, you can make it. You really can. So about 3.5 years ago, I, after pastoring a number of years and doing what some of Pastor Lewis does in administration as well, the Lord called me to go out and to start my own leadership company. I started from scratch. In May of 2018, March of 2018, I went to my conference president and study, but he had natural ability. He got down to Oakwood, And he was a senator of the government. He was a student ambassador for the president at that time, Dr. Baker. He was just well known on campus. I would come to campus and folk would come up to me, oh, you have a wonderful son. Faculty, he is the nicest guy. The administration, we love your son, Andy. So about November, I'm asking Andy in his first year, how you doing, son? How's your grades? Yeah, Dad, it's going good. Well, you know your grades coming at the end of the semester, and we got to the end of the semester. I'm looking for his grades. I never saw him. I'm sure Dad, they're going to mail them to us. They're going to send them. They're going to email them. I never saw him. And you know, when your kid turns 18, you can't just tell the college to send you their grades. And I couldn't get him. I said, he went back and I said, hey, how you doing? He said, I'm doing well. I said, you involved in a lot. And natural ability. And about when he got home for the spring, at the end of that second semester, a lady in the student counseling center called me, because I had called them several times. And I said, my son says he's working real hard and the grades are good, but he can't get them. He keeps waiting. The lady says, Pastor Russell, your son is lying to you. I said, really? She says, his grades, he failed almost everything. And he's standing beside me while I'm getting his judgment day. And when I hang up the phone, he got these tears in his eyes. And I said, you told me you're doing well. I said, you had all of this natural ability. You got a full ride, didn't have to pay for anything. Pastor Lane, good to see you, man. And I said, remember I told you and your sister made it through college. We paid about $250 the whole time. He came his first year and flunked out. And I said, we said we will pay your way through academy, but you guys need to go to college on scholarships. And I said, you will go to college, but you're going to go through on your own. You're going to pay for every dime. What you could have got done with almost free because of your scholarship, you're going to have to pay for it the whole way. And that boy struggled and paid for it point by point and made it through. He had natural ability, but at that point, he had no grit. And now, grit kicked in. He learned it. And now he works for NBC News. He's on this morning with the Meet the Press, the Day Show, and Nightly News. And on Sundays when I'm at home, I watch Meet the Press. My wife comes downstairs to watch the credits. She can watch his name. I said, Brenda, the program is pretty good too. She said, no, run those credits again. I want to see his name. So when I go to his studios, I meet Chuck Todd, got a picture with Chuck. He knows all the major players. He puts together the news stories, and young guy. But somewhere along the line, grit kicked in. Now, I remember I mentioned the power of grit and perseverance. One of the qualities that leaders have to have is grit. Because you can get burnt out in leadership. You can just get very blasé when it comes to church leadership or that on your job unless you got the grit to say, we pressed it through. Now, what goes with grit is its twin brother or twin sister or twin called perseverance. Go for it, Frederick. Resilience, not perseverance. Resilience, go for it. So resilience is defined by a great leader named Joseph Folkman. He defines resilience this way. I am positing that as a leader, you need two things. You need grit and resilience. Here is the definition for resilience. He says, a resilient leader is a person who sees failures as temporary setbacks. Key word there is what? Temporary setbacks. They can recover from quickly. They maintain a positive attitude and a strong sense of opportunity during periods of turbulence. Read it again, Brother Russell, I will. A resilient leader is a person who sees failures as temporary setbacks. A resilient person is one who sees failures as temporary. they can recover from quickly. They maintain a positive attitude and a strong sense of opportunity during periods of turbulence. Go to the next one, Frederick. So there was a lady some years ago that you're familiar with, Helen Keller. How many of you have ever heard of Helen Keller before? Most of you. You remember that Helen Keller was born in the late 1800s. But around 1903, between 1903 and 1907, she met with an accident, and Helen Keller ended up being both blind and deaf. She couldn't see, neither could she hear. Now, guys, think about that. I mean, don't just let that blow past you. What would you do if you couldn't see or hear? Now, she was back during the days where there was not that many resources, and all what was projected for her life is to be institutionalized and live out her days in some dark, cold, dank institution, because there was no potential, nothing whatsoever. Helen Keller was not going to make it. Change slides. But Helen Keller ended up not only making it through school, but ended up graduating from college, even though she was deaf and blind. And Helen Keller ended up writing a book. And guess what the name of the book was? From the most low potential person you can find, giving her deafness and blindness, she ended up writing a book called Optimism. Now, that means that there is something in her being, in her DNA, something that says, no matter what, I'm going to make it. And what you discover is that Helen Keller had this quality of resilience. She had a temporary setback, but she didn't allow that setback to control or define her. Am I getting through this morning? Okay, here we go. Let's go forward. There's a friend of mine that lives, used to live down in the, who's he at? Sacramento, California area. And his name was Chris Simons. You know Chris, Dr. Lewis? Chris Simons was at Oakwood with me. And Chris Simons, about 13 years ago now, ended up with Lou Gehrig's disease, which is also ALS. And Chris should have died in the first 3 or 4 years. But Chris is around 12 or 13 years in now. Now, there were several folk that he knew well who got Lou Gehrig's disease or ALS after him. They all died. His best friend, who is Dr. Lewis's predecessor, Roscoe Howard, was his best friend. And Roscoe ended up getting, I mean, remember Elder Howard, ended up getting Lou Gehrig's disease. And of course, Dr. Howard is no longer with us. Now, Chris is an amazing guy. Go forward if you would, Frederick. Chris is an amazing guy because the average lifespan is about, to mention, 2 or 3 years. What was the difference? Chris said that I am not giving up. Chris is bedridden today. He has a trach in because it affects the respiratory system and your movements. And Chris sends out devotionals every day that are some of the most powerful, for years, some of the most powerful devotionals. How do you write them? Chris had a computer that he could just read and speak with his eyes. And he has 2 devotionals that are coming out this year that's going to be put in the book form. Chris began to get to the place where he says, I want to get off of this ventilator. And so Chris began to ask his aides to take him off the ventilator for short periods of time. You can't live without a ventilator as an ALS patient. And Chris came off the ventilator the first time 5 minutes, 15 minutes, and a half an hour, 45 minutes, an hour. And he was amazed. He kept pushing it. And of course, his body became degenerating. But I'm trying to show you that Chris has resilience. Chris became a text crisis counselor, where he counseled people in crisis through text. He ended up with the organization he was working for from his bed, ended up being identified as the top crisis counselor on text in the whole organization. Chris inspires me. Every day I get texts from Chris. We talk back and forth. I tell Chris all the time, he's the most inspirational guy I've been around because Chris has this thing called resilience, and so many people give up. They pull back. They don't press through. That quality when it comes to leaders is indispensable, grit and resilience. Go forward, Frederick. Here we go. So go back. Yeah, you're right there. Go back. Yes. So remember Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods was the first golfer, because he's black, that I actually began to watch golf when Tiger came. How many of you started watching golf when Tiger came on? You know, I didn't watch. It was boring prior to that. But I began to watch golf, and Tiger Woods became the top golfer in the world. Winning tournament after tournament after tournament. He was hot. He was amazing. And then, of course, you know, a few years ago, Tiger Woods ended up getting injured. And go for it, Fred. Over 5 years, Tiger Woods lost his marriage. You remember that? You remember the one at a time, yeah? He lost his marriage, and remember the golf club incident, and lost his kids. Tiger ended up losing his advertisement contracts, because you know, with athletes, you get paid more with your contracts from sponsors than you do what you make on the course or the field. He ended up losing over 5 years his children, as I referenced. He lost his health. Remember that back issue? That Tiger got to the place where he could not sit, he could not lay down, he could not stand. It was all downhill, it should have been. And then Tiger ended up losing his game, that he couldn't even get past the qualifying rounds anymore. That bad. And he ended up losing his reputation. We know that. But a few years ago, about 4 years ago, prior to this last injury, how many of you remember this about 4 years ago?
And thousands behind him come down the hill. And you'd have to think this whole process, I mean, it has been a winding journey of a process.
It's exciting. It's a lot like the Open Championship, where they let the gallery converge on the 72nd hole and walk up with the players, and you have to walk through a lot of the gallery. Nothing like it in sports, really.
No matter, the tap in for Tiger. We thought we'd never see it, and I don't believe he thought either. Tour championship winner, Tiger Woods, a winner again, number 80. Tour champion and a FedEx Cup champion embrace.
Tiger, if you go back to the first surgery that caused you to miss the Masters back in 14, what would you consider to be the low point, and what would you consider to be the high point up until today?
Probably the low point was not knowing that if I ever be able to live pain-free again. Am I going to be able to sit, stand, walk, lay down without feeling the pain that I was in? And I just didn't want to live that way. You know, this is how the rest of my life is going to be. It's going to be a tough rest of my life. And so, you know, I was beyond playing. I didn't want, I mean, I couldn't sit. I couldn't walk. I couldn't lay down without feeling the pain in my back and my leg. So, you know, that was a pretty low point and for a very long time.
Back.
Tiger, over here.
Yes.
To so many people, that this completes your comeback. Does that feel like the sense to you, or will only be complete when you do something else, win another major or whatever that may be?
No, dude, I just to be able to compete and play again this year, that's a hell of a comeback. As I said, some of the people are very close to me. They've seen what I've gone through. I was alluding to some of the players. I've seen what I've gone through, and they know how hard it was just to get back to playing golf again and forget the elite level. Just be able to play golf again and enjoy being with my kids and living that life. And then lo and behold, I'm able to do this and win a golf tournament.
Well, how the Tiger put it, Frederick, he said this: it means a lot more to me now because there was a point in time, a temporary setback, that I didn't think I would do it again. But he demonstrated that essential quality of resilience. Resilience. And that's why in this environment of the pandemic, the only thing that gets us through is what? Resilience, to keep moving. In your life, all of us have had moments where we had setbacks, but there are some folk who never make it through. They just quit. And there are those who got that intestinal fortitude, that tenacity that comes from grit, but resilience of saying no matter what the setback was, I'm going to get up and I'm going to try again and again and again to press forward. Let me pause here. So I have been leading for a number of years, all levels, and I have seen really good leaders, and I've really seen challenged leaders. But the two things that I've noticed, you can make mistakes in leadership. You can really blow it in leadership. But your ability to get back up and try again and again and not quit and to have the grit and the tenacity and the fortitude and this resolve that says, I'm going to learn this, I'm going to do this well. Your ability to come on and take church leadership and says that no matter what I do in this church, I will not do it with mediocrity. I will not give the church just enough to get by. The same quality I give my job, I would give my church more. And even when I don't feel like it, is that because I believe in the cause, I need the grit and resilience to keep going. And what would have happened in were you at Maranatha, Dr. Lane? What would happen in Maranatha and Emerald City and Mt Tahoma and what's the other church? Breath of Life and all of those churches. What would have happened if the leadership base came with resilience and grit? What would happen? And of course, it's God that drives those qualities within us. But if I quit because I don't like the pastor or didn't like that decision on the board and I get discouraged because it's just me on the team. You know how it is when you first take office? You come in January, whenever your officer year is, and you had a room full of people, and then about March, it's just you and a few others, and about April, it's just you and your cousin, and by May, no one is there but you. And you're saying, Pastor, I'm going to quit. That's why you choose leaders. You look for leaders who are saying grit and tenacity or grit and resilience. Those are the two top qualities to make it in leadership. Both of those are essential. Let's go one more slide here. So when it comes to resilient people bounce, not break, when faced with adversity or challenge. Which of these are you? When you're facing challenges or adversity, do you break or do you bounce? Keep going, Frederick. Zinga Folkman is another consulting company, said this right here, and I end on this one, Fred. The most resilient leaders are viewed as the most effective leaders as well. Amen. Let's take a 10-minute break, a bio break. Let's get to the restroom, some water. I think Pastor provided some snacks out here. It's about a 10-minute break, and we'll start right back exactly at 11:22. Okay, and we will still make it out by 1. We're moving this morning. We will start exactly at 11:22. Exactly. Okay, guys, we're going to get started back at 11:23, 1 minute past. And you should have the leadership materials. Dr. Jean, you have the leadership, they give them to you, the materials. And we have some for Dr. Lane. Got some? Okay, make sure everybody's back in. All right, and we're missing a couple of us. We're missing Pat, and unfortunately, you're in trouble if I know your name now. Missing Pat, missing Giselle is here. Demetria, there she is. She's coming back in. I know names now. You're in trouble. Now, guys, we almost finished. This moves kind of quick, but the next few minutes, I want to carry it to a different level when it comes to leadership. Would you pull out the presentation called Earning Respect as a Leader? Earning Respect as a Leader. And I'm going to talk about a lot of stuff in this presentation that you can take it to the bank and cash it. Everything here is right on point with this thing of leadership, earning respect as a leader. I'd like you to get with a partner, keep your mask on, but get with a partner of two, no more than three. And even you would take a minute apiece and share this with your partner. I want you to name a leader that you respect and then tell them why you respect that leader. Then I want you to take a leader that you will not name. Don't name this leader, but talk about a leader that you don't respect and tell why. Name a leader that you respect, living, dead, actor, in the church, government, politics. Name a leader that you respect, and why do you respect them? Listen to your partner. Listen to what they respect in a leader, and then talk about a leader that you don't respect and tell why. You in groups of twos, no more than threes. Okay? Here we go. We'll do this in about 2.5 minutes. Let's go for it. And the directions are right at the top of your notes. Okay, everybody, here we go. This is the gospel according to Aretha, R-E-S-P-E-C-T. Earning respect as a leader. At the top of your notes is a powerful quote, and it says this: respect as a leader does not come with a title or showing up for work. Respect doesn't come overnight, but it can be lost in a moment. Respect is that coveted of virtues without which a leader cannot realize goals, dreams, or vision, no matter how noble or grand. So let me tee this up by talking, first of all, why do leaders sell out to being liked over being respected? Why do leaders sell out to being liked over being respected? Well, the first reason, letter A in your writing, the first reason that leaders sell out to being liked over being respected is that their desire and need to be loved and affirmed, you're writing affirmed, is greater than their desire and sense of responsibility. That's the second word, to lead. In other words, they desire to do the popular thing than the right thing. So look at me, everybody. Look at me, everybody. So they take their finger like this, and they put it to their tongue, and they raise their finger to the wind, and whichever way the wind blows strongest, that's the direction that they take, because their need to be loved and affirmed is greater than their desire and sense of responsibility. Their desire to do the popular thing, not the right thing. Look at this, everybody. The second reason that leaders sell out to being liked over being respected is that they have a desire to keep peace if at all possible. They have a desire to keep peace if at all possible. And as soon as you write peace, when it didn't take that long to write peace, I want you to look at me, everybody. This is your first takeaway as a leader today. Peace at all cost will bring you chaos. It will. And if you go for just peace, that means you're not going to deal with certain things. If you go with just peace, some decisions you will never make, even good decisions. And I know some leaders who want to not to rock the boat, I want to keep everything peaceful, but peace at all costs means you won't deal with certain things, and peace at all costs will bring you chaos. I came to a church one time, and I was determined not to have any conflict in that church. So I was going to just make sure everything stay peace. And what happens, it doesn't work because I went for peace as opposed to addressing things, opposed to leading, and it ended up with a level of chaos if I hadn't just gone for peace. There's nothing wrong with peace, but peace at all costs will bring you chaos. Because that means you don't deal with things, they're going to go underground on you. And when it goes underground, it's more deeper and sinister than if you had dealt with it as a leader. Here's the third reason why leaders sell out to being liked over being respected. Remember I said everything you learned today, you can use it in the morning at 8 o'clock? Here's the third thing. Leaders sell out to being liked over being respected is if they are insecure about what people think. They are insecure about what people think. And as soon as you write that, let me get your eye contact. Don't take that long to write insecure and think, right? So look at me, everybody. No matter how good you are as a leader, there will be people who do not like you. And no matter how sorry you are as a leader, there will be people who would like you. So you can't be insecure about what people think. Turn the person beside you and tell them, turn to them again and say this, even I don't like you. No, don't do that. Don't do that. And Frederick, you definitely don't do it. You sit beside you. It's going to be a long, whole night for you, my brother. The most to be around is the insecure leader. Because it's all about them. It's about how I'm looking, how I'm feeling, how I'm being perceived. If you are insecure, you're going to be very much in to what people think about you, but you all only end up becoming paranoid. And that means you see boogeymen, there is no boogeyman, or you end up going downhill, getting discouraged because sister so-and-so didn't speak to you today. And John didn't show up at the meeting. That means he must dislike me. No matter how good you are as a leader, there will be people who do not like you. And you cannot fall apart if you have haters. If you have people who don't care for you. That doesn't make a judgment on your leadership. Most of the time it makes a judgment on them. Here's the fourth reason why leaders sell out to being liked over being respected, is that it's easier to be nice than to make tough decisions. That goes in just what we really liked. And so therefore, I'm not going to make the tough call. And one of the things that leaders must excel at, that is making decisions. That's what we do as leaders. Here's the fifth reason why leaders sell out to being liked over being respected, is if they place practical leadership needs over personal maturity. In other words, I got to get this done. I'd be utilitarian in getting it done. And therefore, no matter how it makes the organization function, because I need to be mature in this, it doesn't matter, because I'm willing to place practical leadership needs over personal maturity. Look at your bottom. There's a key principle there at the bottom of your page, and that principle is this. Let's read it together. Together. When? Let me try it again. At the bottom of your page, it says key principle. Let's read it together. When you must. No. Y'all know y'all sound like Zoom. When you're trying to sing together and it's all off, one person before that. Let's read it again together. When you must decide between being liked and being respected, you need to choose being what? At the bottom of the page, one great American in his own mind said this. That was a joke. You missed it. I'm wasting good jokes on you guys today. Respect is the one, in fact, I got to explain it. It ceases being funny. Well, anyway, respect is the one thing that a leader must have to successfully lead. Without it, leadership gets what, everybody? Aborted. But turn your page. Let me unpack this, because there's a nuance in this now. I want to give you the essential ingredients on being likable as a leader. Look at me, everybody. I didn't say liked. I said likable. Because remember, I said everyone is not going to like you. But as a leader, it's important that you at least be likable. Because look at the letter A. If you are respected but not likable, I'm telling you, your leadership will be limited and short-lived. You're respected, but you're not likable, your leadership is still not going to work. So the reason for that, if you are respected but not likable, number one, people will follow you at a distance because they don't fully trust you. You're respected, but you're not likable. So they're not going to get up close to you at all. I've seen this happen to leaders many times. And they can't figure out what's going on. They're respected, but they're not likable. If you are respected but not likable, number two, you will experience frequent turnover of staff. People trying to get to another ministry because they don't want to be with you. Or they'll be, as a pastor, they're trying to get to another church. Or as a leader, or as a government leader, they're trying to get to another agency or get out of the government completely, because if you are respected but not likable, you will experience frequent turnover of staff. You can take that to the bank and cash it. I'm telling you, that happens. If you are respected but not likable, number three, people will not be loyal to you. Now, because Pastor Smith, I hope this is a mature leadership team, I'm about to tell you a story, a true story, to illustrate number three. Now, I'm assuming that you guys are mature when I tell you this story. So some years ago, we had a general conference president over the entire Adventist church named Robert Falkenberg. Elder Falkenberg got in trouble ethically on some things. where he was mixing business with church business. And he had a chance to survive that. But when it came down to the committees of voting, the leaders who did not up on him close, but they live out around the world, they voted to keep him. You know who were the vice presidents that sunk him? Those who work in his own office and building. And I was trying to figure out this thing until he was no longer GC president, and I invited him up to Baltimore where I was pastoring to preach. Because when you're no longer GC president, you got time on your calendar. Oh, you're dead group, man. That was good. It was, by the way, everybody, and true. So he didn't drive his good car up to Baltimore because we will steal his good car. But he drove his pickup truck up there, a little red pickup truck, old pickup truck. He preached that Sabbath, the solid word as he always does. And then he came to my house for dinner. My kids had gone somewhere else for dinner, so was my wife, Brenda, and myself, and him. While Brenda was warming up the food, we were in the living room talking and just exchanging, going back and forth. And when he left, I said to Brenda, I'm sure he's a good man, but he's not very likable. He's almost prickly. If you are respected but not likable, your leadership will be limited and short-lived. I've seen it in the pastoral leaders, I've seen it in local church leaders, I've seen it in corporate leaders, government leaders, academic leaders. It happens consistently. And they're trying to figure out what is going on. I work hard, I do this. The problem is you're not likable. Here's number 4. If you are respected but not likable, you will experience burnout. And the reason you experience burnout is what I said at the top, because no one is close to you. You've often said that leadership is lonely. No, leadership is only lonely if you carry no one on the leadership journey with you. Now, there's some lonely decisions, but leadership itself cannot be lonely because you got folk around you that you are carrying with you. So with all of what I just said, I want to now show you 10 keys to developing your leadership likability factor. I'm going to show you how to become likable. And when you finish this, I like every month that you're likable, to send me $25 in the mail. How about that? You said, that's all your advice is worth? Well, it's inflation. Come on, guys. I'm trying to keep the cost low. Now, look at me, everybody. What I'm about to tell you works. It's not an exhaustive list. I'm sure there are other things. But these 10 that I have here works. And as a good Adventist, you know I'm going to use a list of 10, right? Dead group, man. I'm wasting this stuff today, man. So here we go. Number 1, in developing your leadership likability factor. Here's the first thing you can do. Well, it's not in any sequential order. Here's one thing you can do. Express your personal interests in the lives of others. Express your personal interests. Because you know this anecdote, don't you? People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Guys, when you care about people and you're interested in people, it comes through. And so on Sabbath in line, when I'm shaking folks' hands, hey, George, good to see you. How did that job turn out? Yeah, hey, Marjorie, good to see you this morning. Is your mom doing it better up in New York? You remember details about your people that you're able to ask and show that you care, because people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. That's the first one I'm sharing with you, how to develop your leadership likability factor. In other words, it can't always be about you. You're going to get past you and care about the people around you that are in your vertical of the ones that you're leading in your ministry and in the church and on your job and in your family and in your neighborhood, that you actually care about people. I've been around leaders who don't like people. And I remember one leader was someone there, he was telling me, I just don't like people. And I'm saying, you're in the wrong business. Because listen to me, everybody, leadership is 10% technical and 90% people. No matter how many technical skills you got, if you don't have people, then you can't lead them. It don't mean you got to come out with some dazzling people skills. One of them, just care. Would you turn to the person to your left and right and tell them, I'm halfway enjoying this? Let them know. Don't lie. Don't tell them you're fully enjoying it. Just tell them you're halfway enjoying it. How about that? And maybe the enemy asks it more fully. Okay? Buckle your seatbelts on the second one. The second one works, everybody. The second way you develop your leadership likability factor is this. Demonstrate a friendly, outgoing, and enthusiastic spirit. In other words, people are drawn towards people who enjoy life. Don't mean you got to be the life of the party, but you at least enjoy life. You ever been around some people who, when you come into their space, they just depress you? Come on, guys, raise your hands if that ever happened to you. And you can't wait to get away because you just want to slash your wrist. No, I'm kidding. No. I'm kidding, guys. But I've been around some people who just depress me. I'm just counting down the time. Lord, please get me out of here. Because they don't enjoy life. Everything is bad. It's towards me. Everything is negative. Everyone around them is just terrible. And I'm saying if everyone is terrible, everything in life, then why are you still here? Don't do anything dangerous. I'm kidding here. But what is going on? And people are drawn towards people who enjoy life. Good morning. How are you? It's good to be alive this morning. I'm just, we can say it, the old people in the South said, I'm just so glad this morning that my bed did become my cooling board. That's a Southern thing, there. Come on, Derek, you from down South. You were South Central. You can't act like you've been out of here your whole life, man. You remember that one, don't you? Your senior pastor from Emerald City is from the South as well, guys. Come on now. There's some Southern roots in him. And of course your pastor's from South Canada, right? He's from South Canada, man. Amen. Here we go, everybody. The third way to develop your leadership likability factor is develop a great sense of humor. Somebody said, learn to laugh at yourself because everyone else is. Come on, everybody. Let's do one big laugh together. You ready? Come on, Pat. Come on. Here we go. All together. A big laugh. Oh, man. I mean, and some folks got some funny laughs. My wife has a funny laugh. I said, come on. Where'd you get that from? But guys, I like to laugh. And there's nothing about being around that lifts your endorphins and raises your spirits than to be able to laugh. Not laugh at people, laugh. And sometimes it is with people, and at people, because they focus on some funny things at times. But develop a great sense of humor. Don't always be so stoic that you can't see the humor in things. By the mere fact you're dealing with other human beings, that's humor right there. You know that God laughs at us all the time. There they go again, Hey, here's the fourth way that you develop your leadership likability factor, and that is, listen to this, take care of yourself physically, mentally, and emotionally so you can maintain a high level of energy. Because if there's one thing the leaders need energy. So I was sitting on the plane a few weeks ago because I'm on planes once, 2 and 3 times a week. Then, of course, I got a good airline status, so I get free upgrades. Everyone say free because I can't afford them. These are free upgrades. And so, or I can use my mileage. I sit in first class a lot. I meet some interesting people up there. So a few weeks ago, I'm on a plane, and Dr. Sanjay Gupta from CNN sits beside me. He lives in Atlanta. We're on our way up to D.C. We fall into the most interesting conversation. And I had now several weeks ago, my wife and I tested positive for COVID. And let me show you the story. I'm not sure if I really had COVID or was it the test results. So we by fluke, we got positive during Christmas with our family. We found out what was going on. We shot back to Atlanta the very next morning, early that Monday morning. I went to get tested. I felt great when I went to get tested. And then all day I felt great. And about 5 o'clock, I get the email that says, Frederick Russell, you have tested positive. When I read that, I got sick. And I'm not sure that I have COVID or was it the test results that made me sick. And I know I had it because I tested positive. So I stopped feeling bad on Monday. While Wednesday afternoon, I felt perfect. My wife went to get tested the next morning because typically you get it, your spouse is going to get it. My wife got tested the next morning, and that evening on Tuesday, she tested positive. And she started to feel congestion, a lot of things. And by Thursday that same week, she was feeling great. So we had 2 days of COVID, praise God, only by the mercy of God. But the fact is, I'm not sure I got that. Oh yeah, Sanjay Gupta was on the plane with me a few weeks earlier, and he was saying, man, whatever you do, even in mild cases, don't test positive. It can be rough. You're never sure how it's going to react in your body. He said, let me tell you something. And he told me about his book that's out that you ought to get. Here's the second book I'm recommending. And I get no proceeds from this. His book is called Chasing Life. Chasing Life. And he says, Fred, let me tell you something. Chasing Life by Dr. Sanjay Gupta. Gupta. He says the best thing you can do is to stay as far as it lies with you in optimal health. Not just your immune system, but you're exercising, working out, you're eating good food, healthy food, you're not putting junk in your body. He says, Freddie, after this pandemic, there will be another. And how much stuff can you put in your body? How many vaccines can you put in there? Now, I have nothing against vaccines. I got mine. However, at some point, you will discover is that your best antidote is what? Being healthy. Being healthy. I've seen people who are healthy, really healthy, and really working on their systems and getting good food in their bodies and watching it that got COVID, and within, short amount of time, they were through it. Now I'm happy to be one that took the vaccine because I travel a lot. I needed something more, I felt. But the fact is, he says, live healthy. Start the day, he says, choose what you put in your body. The rest that you get. Because I rest what? I was resting about 3.5, 4 hours, 4.5 hours a night. And there was not nearly enough. He was saying, get a full night's sleep. Eat healthy. Make sure you're watching the times that you eat. Making sure you are exercising. Make sure you're building that immune system strongly. He says that is going to help you because this is not the first, but neither is it the last pandemic. There's more to come. And I'm just saying this as a leader, we have to take care of ourselves physically, mentally, and emotionally because we need energy in order to serve. Here's number 5. The fifth way to enhance your leadership likability factor, number 5, is to maintain, listen to this everybody, a positive outlook on life. You must do what Zig Ziglar says. He says, stay away from stinking thinking. The Bible says it this way, whatsoever is holy, just, pure, of a good report, think on these things. Jesus said, the Bible says it this way, let this mind, which is in Christ Jesus, also be in you. But if you're always negative, you're always down, always thinking, then that consumes who you are, and you just become a very dark person where it just seeps out of you. And one of the ways to develop a leadership likability is stay away from thinking that develop a positive outlook on life. It doesn't mean that you are disconnected from reality. It's that you see good, even sometimes the bad. Able to pierce through it and say, this is not the full story here. If you're enjoying this, say amen. Watch this, everybody. Number 6, in developing a leadership likability factor. Very practical stuff, but user-friendly. Here it is. Number 6. Show sensitivity to other people's viewpoint. There should be 2 there. Show sensitivity to other people's viewpoint. Because you may not agree, but you want to communicate honor and value to them through understanding. Because if you come in like a steamroller, you're going to end up hurting the cause. If you do it long enough, people will rise up and hurt you. Sensitivity to other people's viewpoint. Stephen Covey says it this way. Look at me, everybody. Stephen Covey says it this way. Seek first, out of his book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, which is the third book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. One of his habits is seek first to understand before trying to be understood. By the way, everybody, that also works in marriage. Of seeking first to understand before trying to be understood. What if you operated like that? Where you're not so into your opinion, where you are right first, but you stop to understand first before trying to be understood. Look at number what? Number 7. Take time to express genuine, intentional acts of kindness. I love that. Take time to express genuine, intentional acts of kindness. It's all right to be kind, you know. How many of you in the Pathfinders? You remember that one? Be what? Kind. Walk soft in the sanctuary. Go on God's errand. Here's the positive part. Keep a song in your heart. I mean, I didn't go far in the Pathfinders. We're not that good. I got Master God, you know, but hey. But when you go through preacher school, you get Master God in a matter of seconds because you took all the classes, you know. But the thing is, I love Pathfindering. My kids are there. My wife was a leader. That's something, be kind. It's all right to be kind, everybody, even when others are being unkind. Here's number 8. Devote yourself to personal authenticity. I'm talking about developing your leadership likability, how to be likable. Devote yourself to personal authenticity. That means you're going to be real in your public life, real in your private life, and real in your inner life. You understand those different components, right? Your public life is a part of life that we see in this room. Your private life is what your family and your children see and your intimate friends. But your inner life, I-N-N-E-R, is the only part of your life that God sees. And if you're shaky in your inner life, it's going to roll over to your private life, and eventually it's going to explode in your public life. And so you want to devote yourself to personal authenticity. There is no misalignment between your private life and your public life. You don't want your children coming to church and see you up there and say, "Oh, the Lord is so good. Bless you. Hey, darling." And the kid said, "He just cursed mama out before he got at the car." Who is that masked man? Oh, yeah, literally masked man. Because sometimes when we live in private, it's not when we are in public. And what you have at that point, listen to this word again, you have a misaligned life. Your life is incongruent. It is inconsistent. Because as a believer, I want my wife people to say, what you see in the pulpit is the same guy you see in the church. What you see in the pulpit is the same guy, is the same guy that I see at home. At home. And that's even more important if you got kids who come to church and they're living with you. Because they can see all the disconnects. Yeah? Personal authenticity. Let me try to get everybody. Personal authenticity. That's the one I want. That's the one I go for. I love the next one. To develop your likability factor, encourage and praise often. Encourage and praise often. Now, write this note beside number 9. You are 51% on your way to being a good leader. You're writing this beside number 9. You are 51% on your way to being a good leader. You are 51% on your way to being a good leader if you can learn the art of encouragement. I love that. You are 51%, guys, on your way to being a good leader if you can learn the art of encouragement. Let me show you how that works. I did it a bit this morning, and I did it yesterday with Pastor, and a bit more this morning. But let me just speak of Pat. I met Pat yesterday for dinner. We were at somebody's Elder Mrs. Carrington's house. Went on. Let me clean that up, Pat. That didn't sound right, did it? Okay. She was at the dinner. How about that again? Okay. That's and Adventist church, you got to clean that up quickly. She was at the dinner. And I had a chance to see earlier her handwriting. And Pat, I mentioned you yesterday. Man, I would kill to have the penmanship that you got. And then yesterday at the house, just the quality of person that came through in that house. I mean, you're a real leader. You really think concretely. You think solidly. You're a real leader. And at the same time, I just picked up yesterday just watching you interact, that when you're comfortable, you're at a solid, awesome place in how you come off with people in those environments. Encourage and praise often. Now, this is with a friend. I did a little early. Let me go further. The reason that I not only love Pastor Lewis, I like him. And as I mentioned, I've been knowing him for 25 years. There is a consistency about you, man. And I've watched it. You have not changed one iota. I mean, you've gotten better, obviously, because you're growing. But the same person I met, the humble preacher coming out of Spokane, and you were coming into Emerald City. We sat down. You were talking about your early plans that you're going to do. And you said, I'm going to be here for a while. I'm not going to run in and run out of this church. And you didn't know how true that was. But I've watched you not only in your natural setting, in church, in conference meetings. I've watched you in your home, how you come off. I like how you dealt with your grandson when I was there, and your wife. Then I watch you on a personal basis. I watch you in the national meetings. You are consistent. I watched you one time down in Bermuda do a ordination, and you were so on point with it. But the thing is, you were speaking from stuff that you were not making up that day. It flowed out of your own leadership. Courage and affirm often. Now, would you get with a partner now? Everyone with a partner? Pastor, can you go back with Elder Lewis and with Pastor Lane? You guys right here, get with a partner. And I want you to affirm the person that you're sitting beside, if you know them. And if you don't know them, say, I like your shoes. How about that? Okay. Affirm those. No, you know each other here? Would you affirm each other, if you wouldn't mind? Thank you, Nathan. Thank you for moving. Yes. In fact, Pastor, would you go back with Frederick? Okay. He is the best name in the house. Okay, everybody. There is just a good feeling when you get affirmed. And can you imagine that with your children, your grands, with your spouse, with your colleagues, that from time to time, you just affirm people. And you are 51% on the way to being a good leader if you can learn not the science of encouragement, but the art of encouragement. Number 10, practice in developing a leadership likability factor. Practice listening carefully to the real message being communicated. Practice listening carefully to the real message. Why do you want to practice that? Because sometimes people are saying much more than they're communicating. You're reading their eyes, you're reading their body language, you're watching a host of factors to make sure that there's a congruency in what they are communicating. Okay, turn your page real quick. And we are less than an hour from finishing here. So here it is. I want to talk now about the essential ingredients to earning and gaining respect. And that third section says this: if you are likable, going to reverse it now, if you are likable but not respected, your leadership also will be limited and short-lived. Before I said if you are respected but not likable, now I'm saying you are likable, but if you're not respected, your leadership will be limited and short-lived. But here's 5 reasons. The first reason, if you're likable but not respected, people are going to follow you closely, but with insecurity and lack of confidence, because they like you, you're wonderful, but you don't have the confidence in you, because that's all you are, likable, but the respect is not there. Number 2, if you are likable but not respected, people become too comfortable or apathetic under your leadership. Nothing gets done. It didn't move forward. Y'all laugh when you get together, but nothing gets executed. There's no production. Here's the third. If you are respected but not likable, if you're likable but not respected, under your leadership, people will lose enthusiasm. People will lose enthusiasm. And number 4, if you are likable but not respected, people, take this to the bank and cash it. Number 4, this is true. People will get restless under your leadership and begin to question you constantly in a friendly way. Now, guys, you say, that's not so bad. No. The fact is, when people push and question a leader in a friendly way, this is more dangerous than those who out and out confront the leader openly. Because once your friends begin to question you, they might tell you the whole story, but you discover it is going underground, and it's a lot more dangerous at that point when people begin to question you in a friendly way. They like you, but they have lost respect for you. That means you are likable, but not respected. So let me end up, as I did with the other, of giving you 10 keys to developing your leadership respect factor. Number 1 in developing the ability to be respected is this: maintain. Everyone shout maintain. Maintain a willingness to confront when necessary. If you are conflict adverse, you probably are not going to do good in leadership. Because no matter how good you are as a leader, you're going to have to deal with conflict at times. Everything is not going to be, let me use a southern term, hunky-dory. Everything's not going to always go smooth. As a leader, sometimes I got to confront people. So with that, or confront people over things. So with that in mind, under number one, let me give you the basic art of confrontation. When you as a leader have to go to a person to deal with a matter, I'm giving you the basic art on how to do that. Here it is. Letter A, before you confront the person, seek wisdom. That means in prayer. That means dialoguing, maybe someone else who has wisdom, but seek wisdom. Don't just jump in there. Get some wisdom first. Letter B, before you go to them, letter B, examine your own heart first. It may be you. It may be something you got to look at. something you got to ponder. You may have to become more self-reflective of how you're coming off. Examine your own heart first. That's difficult because it's so easy to look at everyone else's heart instead of your own heart. Because when we judge ourselves based upon our intentions. We judge everybody else based upon their actions. Here's the third thing you want to do. When you have to confront a person, timing is important, but don't procrastinate or give in to unnecessary delays, because the longer you wait to deal with it, the more apt it is to spin out of control. That's why you deal with it as soon as you can. Letter D, when you have to confront a person, conduct the confrontation, here it is, with a warm and loving attitude. You don't have to be nasty. You don't have to be controlling. You don't have to press them down and demean them. You can be very warm and loving as you confront them. By the way, everybody, that's called Christianity. Letter E, be succinct or direct. Succinct when you talk to them. Don't be all over the place. Be very direct and succinct. And when you're talking to them, stay focused. Don't be talking about the birds and the bees and the Seattle Seahawks, the Supersonics, none of that. Are the Supersonics still here? Yeah, I got a joke, but I'm surrounded, so I won't do it. Seattle Supersonics is one of the best high school teams in the NBA. They really were, you know. But you're not offended; they're no longer here. You know. So are the Atlanta Hawks, and yeah. Touche. Okay, we go, everybody. Letter F. Under the Basic Art of Confrontation, when you are ready to confront a person, communicate in a clear way that you understand their position or perspective. I hear what you're saying, Pastor Lewis. What you're saying to me, I understand that. Because remember, you're seeking first to understand before trying to be understood. But look at letter G. Communicate clearly what action you desire to take place. And so here's how that works, is that Elder, not Winslow Carrington, but Elder Andrew Carrington goes to the elder, on Sabbath morning, Pastor Smith wants us here at 10:30 in place, ready to go. So we got the orientation, what the morning's going to look like. We know what our places are, everything. But you're coming in right at 5 to 11, and that's too late. And what we're asking you to do is start it next Sabbath morning. You're still on to serve next Sabbath, that you're here by 10:30, not at 10:55. You want to communicate in a clear way what action you desire to take place. Don't talk to them and be nebulous and vague and expect them to change, because you were not clear. And then letter H, reaffirm your commitment. Reaffirm. After you talk with them, reaffirm your commitment to the individual as a person. Because here's the truism here. The mere fact you confronted them said what? You care. Reason I confronted you is that you care. And then letter I, put the issue in the past so far as you're concerned. In other words, when it's over, it's over. Look at number 2. In developing your leadership respect factor, here's how you grow that. You can take this to the bank and cash it. Trust me. Number 2 is this. Develop a conviction that results in action. People are attracted to leaders of conviction, that you're not wishy-washy. You're not all over the place. You're not squishy. You know how, if you must, you know how to take a stand. Number 4 or 3, make sure, if you must, that you're willing to stand alone. I'm not talking about a Lone Ranger where it's got to go your way and you call it principle. That's not principle, that's stubbornness. But when there's a principle that you are standing on, make sure you know that you're willing to stand alone if you must. And that doesn't happen often, but every now and again you must take a stand. Number 4, in developing your leadership respect factor, possess the courage to say no. I can say yes, but I almost must be able to say no when I have to and stick with it. 5, and I love 5, think for yourself. Ellen White says it this way. Ellen White says, don't be a mere reflector of other people's thoughts. Think for yourself. We have a whole nation of 40-some% people in the nation who think the last election was fraud. Not thinking for themselves. They were told this on their favorite network. They were told this by their favorite president. He said, if I don't win this election, what? It's going to be fraud. He told them. And we have a whole nation now of 40 to 45% people who are thinking all kinds of crazy stuff right now. And I don't know who you are in this audience. I don't know. I don't go political a lot, but on this one ain't political. It is principle. You cannot believe a lie and not be affected by that. You can't listen to people who are trying to misdirect you and think that you're going to get solid stuff from them. You can't. That's why you must examine what you see and think for yourself. So here's what I do. I look at several news sources every day. I look at Fox. I look at CNN, MSNBC. If I'm able to get to a TV, and I read Slate Magazine. I read The Atlantic. I read National Review. I read as wide as I can on all spectrums because I want to draw my conclusions for myself. But I got to read and be exposed widely to do that. Otherwise, I'm following the thinking of just one person. Number 6, to develop your leadership respect factor, trust me on this one, make a significant contribution. In other words, when you come in and take over your ministry, here's what you want to do. You want to declare to yourself, I'm going to leave it better than how I found it. You don't come in and take over your ministry as clerk, Demetria, and say, well, these records are sloppy when I got here. No, it's going to be top notch when you leave. You make it better than how you found it. You don't take over the children's ministry and say, "Oh well, just read from the Sabbath quarterly. There's no action. There's no engaging with the kids." No, you leave it better than how you found it, and you got to make up in your mind. I made my mind that everything I will do, I got to leave it better than how I found it. I can't be talking about it's how I found it. It's bad. They left it in a mess. If you leave it in a mess, it's you. Number 9, and that is, or number 8, number what, 7? Thank you. I love number 7. And this one is back to insecurity again, and that is know and love yourself enough to be secure in yourself. The only person I'm really ultimately concerned about what they think of me is God. And I'm secure with God. What you think is important, but it's not going to control my life. You want to know yourself enough to be secure in yourself. Number 9, or 8, should I say, develop a confidence in your gifts and abilities. I don't have a lot of gifts, but the ones I got, God, I thank you for this, God. And I'll be confident in what I do. This one thing I do. I don't have to have your gifts. But with the little I got, I'm going to take it over the hill. I mean, confident in what I got. I don't have to hate on you. I don't have that. Yesterday I was trying to sing at the end of service with, what was her name? Catherine singing. Pastor got up and did what? He really sang because he can sing. I said, man, he showed me up. No, I didn't say that. I said, he got it. Pastor Smith can sing, he can preach, he can teach, he can lead, he's creative. He got the full arsenal. I can bring my one and do my one and be confident in that. This one thing. I thank you for this one. Everybody say amen for that one. Amen. And then, number 9, in developing your respect factor, maintain a steadfast commitment to be a leader worthy of people's trust. In other words, you want to always tell the truth. Lying is never justified. Let me tell you something about a little insight here. So when I became a conference president, I was a little naive, I think. I found out that sometimes I had some pastors that would lie. And I got to the place of where I am now. And that is, well, anyone who's talking to you got to assume they could be lying to you, because lying has become so pervasive today, everybody. I was talking to Giselle and Frederick. They're married for 25 years in March. And I said, I'm so glad that you're off that dating scene. I would not want to date today, because you don't know who you're talking to. You got to get a background check. I don't care what they say and how they look, and they tell you they're a man and a woman. You need to doubt that until you in marriage check it out for yourself. I'm serious about that, guys. I'm not joking. You just don't know today. But almost everyone in the culture lies now. When Bill Clinton is one of my favorite presidents, but there will always be a footnote attached to his leadership. When he first left the presidency, all I can think of was that lie every time he showed up on TV. I did not have sexual relations with that woman, Ms. Lewinsky. And the fact is, if they had never found the blue dress, he would have still been lying. So I want you to notice this. That doesn't die. Because on the day that they have his funeral, if he dies soon, God forbid, when they roll his casket or the hearse past the White House and then up the hill in Northwest D.C. onto the National Cathedral, and they parked that hearse out there and began to bring him into the church at National Cathedral, I guarantee the commentators were saying, yes, he did a great job as president, left with the highest ratings as a president, but it was a lie that sunk him. He will always have the footnote of that lie. And so there's never a justification to lie. And in this room, all of us have lied before. Let me try it again. All of us have lied before. And if I would have asked you to raise your hand if you've never lied before, that was number 2 right there. It really was. We've all done it. But we said as leaders, no. We will tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Number 10, finally, as we end this lesson on earning respect as a leader, treat others with respect. If you want it, you give it to others. All practical stuff on being a leader, everybody. Okay? It is 12:23. Let's all stand for just 1 minute and sort of just stretch yourselves and stand up. And we're in the fellowship hall. We would do some jumping jacks. We just stretch ourselves right now for the stretch inning. Here we go. Now there's a last lesson that I'm going to leave with Pastor Smith. That one is called Leaders and Integrity. I'm going to give him the notes to this one, and at your next board meeting, because one of the things that I did as a pastor, I reserved about 15 minutes in my board meeting just to grow my leaders. And I'm going to leave that lesson with you, and given who you are, you'll be able to teach it quite easily, right online if you do it in person or virtual board meetings. Good, and you can send out to them in advance, and you'll be able to do that one. Okay, let's sit down, and we go for the last one this morning. And that is character-driven leadership. Character-driven leadership. This is one of my favorite leadership lessons right here. And you'll see why in a minute. And why we're going to end on this one to get you out of here right at 1 o'clock. At the top of your lesson, you see a couple of quotes there. There is one by Jack Hawley in the wonderful book called Reawakening the Spirit of Work. He says this: character is a distinguishing feature, the essence, the basic ingredient in the new management and leadership paradigm. Let me add that in there. It can give organizational life hardiness and a uniqueness that is all too often compromised nowadays. People hunger for what? Character. Character, everybody. Look at me, everyone. Personality is what you are in the light. character is what you are in the dark when no one is watching. Your true character comes through. You can fake it till you make it in front of everybody else, but your character is what's going to seep through eventually. Look at the second quote there about Horton and Reed and their book called Beyond the Trust Gap. They say this: among most corporate leaders, there seems to be very little sense of urgency about addressing what we believe is one of the overriding crises facing businesses today: the ruptured relations between managers and their employees, or leaders and those who serve with them. That's happening everywhere. You see it in the church. You see it beyond the church, this ruptured relationship, because remember, everything must be based on trust and character. Look at me, everybody. You will never be trusted until you first show yourself to be trustworthy. That's how it starts right there. Now, you may be trusted as a leader for the first 10 minutes because you got positional trust. But after that, you got to earn it. And how you earn it is your character begins to come through strongly. But everyone doesn't see this thing as character as valuable when it comes to leadership. Look at the section there in the middle. Number one, for all too many today, leadership is viewed as advancing the privileges of power. If you got it, use it. Leadership is all about power. I know some churches that just duke it out around nominating committee time because they want power. They want the position. People see leadership as advancing the privileges, number two, of prestige. If you got it, flaunt it. People view leadership as advancing the privileges of position. If you got it, for God's sake, stay in it. Don't go nowhere. And then people view leadership as advancing the privileges of pay. If you got it, spend it. I call these the 4 dangerous P's when not used well. And that is power, prestige, position, and pay. So I am, I'll say this generally, I'm weighing a major decision I got to make tomorrow regarding a position that's been offered me. And there is nothing in me anymore where I'm a climber. I don't need it. Need a position. Don't need to pay. There comes a time when you serve out of the mission and the vision that you are being attracted to. Because when it's all about power and prestige, position, and pay, you can only sustain that one but for so long. It cannot be the deeper driver of what you do. It cannot. So look at character defined. This is the best working definition for character I've seen. Every word is weighted here. Every word is weighted. The moral qualities that determine the way a person thinks, feels, and acts in the important matters of life, especially in relation to the principles of right and wrong. What a definition. The moral qualities, this is character. The moral qualities that determine the way a person thinks, feels, and acts in the important matters of life, especially in relation to the principles of right and wrong. So what does leadership look like without character? Now, I was going to come this weekend and do another whole different way of coming at things. But I thought this first time with you, I want to deal with the inside of a leader here this weekend. We deal with the other practical stuff at another time. But this is what leadership looks like when it has no character. This is what leadership. You will recognize some of this because you've seen it, maybe your job and in other contexts over the years. When there is leadership without character, letter A win-lose environment is created in the workplace or ministry context. A win-lose environment. In other words, I got to win. And if I win, you're going to lose. And if I lose, that means you've won. I've been around leaders who have a win-lose mentality. And that's a sinker in the leadership context, in the church or wherever, when I got to win. And I cut throat to win. And I form alliances in the parking lot in order to win it. demonstrates no character. Because when there's leadership without character, a win-lose environment is created. And it happens all the time in churches. When there's leadership without character, let it be, one-upmanship becomes the rule of the day. I got to be on top. I got to be the head honcho. I got to be over all of this. One-upmanship becomes the rule of the day. Letter C, when there's leadership without character, fear and intimidation is a key modus operandi. Fear and intimidation. Our former president led by fear and intimidation. And that's why in these books that have come out after his administration, they're all what? Tell-alls of the craziness that went on in that White House. When there's leadership without character, letter D, trust is eroded. You're not going to have it. Because you can't trust a megalomaniac that's sitting there as leader. When there's leadership without trust, self is protected at all costs. You see the trend here? When there's leadership without character, letter F, how I look is what's important. Because it's all about me. That's leadership without character. When there's leadership without character, letter G, the focus is on seeming, not being. Seeming, not being. In other words, you don't know who I am. Now you see me, now you don't. What you think you got, that's not what I am. This is not that. That's a leadership without character. When there's leadership without character, you must maintain the myth at all costs. Whatever it takes to keep folk deluded and fooled that I'm a different person. But you can only contain your character for so long. You push the right button or the wrong button, your true self is going to come through. By the way, everybody, and what you do at home eventually is going to come into the church. Okay? Letter I, when there's leadership without character, the problem of control will dominate. Let me give you a personal story. I try not to tell hero stories where I'm the hero. I hate those stories. Let me tell you one. So when I was first couple of years of our marriage was rough. First 2 years, man, I don't want to relive that. How many remember the first 2 years? Okay, how many of you have ever had an argument in marriage? Some of you are righteous. You agree on everything, which is a sick marriage, if you agree on everything. Well, Brenda and I had a rough go in those first 2 years. And, you know, we just could not connect over some things. And I would just lose my temper and go off. And I remember one day this is my first church. I'm 21, 22, 23 years old. And I had to go down to the church one day. And she and I just had a blowout. And I remember saying some words, walking out the door, and just shutting the apartment door behind me. Well, I didn't shut it. I slammed it behind me. I went down to the church to be holy. I walked in, people said, "Hey, Pastor, how are you?" I said, "Hello, darling. How you doing? It's good to see you." And folks said, "We have such a wonderful, nice pastor." They didn't know my wife was back home in tears. She was. So the whole day I was being holy, blessing people, my people, you know. Man, I was working it all day long. And my wife, when I left, about an hour after I left, she said this to herself. She says, "I'm leaving. I'm not taking this anymore." So my wife went to her closet, packed her clothes, wrote me a note, and stuck it in the mailbox on the first floor, living in a high-rise building, that says, "I can't do this anymore. I'm going home to North Carolina." She got in her Honda Accord, and we've been married about a year and a half, and she was going to, we pastored in Cleveland, Ohio. She was going to head home to North Carolina. She said she got in that car. She kept trying to get the car to go south, and it kept circling the city. And that afternoon, she remembered the vow we took with each other before we were married. And that vow was this: no matter what happens in this marriage, divorce is not an option. Remember, everybody, you got to take it off the table from the beginning. Otherwise, Satan will get you to execute that one. And we added a second after that. If divorce is not an option, then misery is not an option. We got to work it through. But we're young, and about 3 o'clock, she made it back home. She went into the mail room, took the note out the box, went upstairs, unpacked the clothes, closed the suitcases. And I came home like a fool, wouldn't speak to her. She'd speak to me. We got into bed that night. You get into bed when you're upset with each other. She's in the far east of the bed division, and you in the far west. Can I get a witness? You guys are looking, you Pharisees in here. You know how that goes some days. I mean, and the bed went but a queen at that point, and she was way in the other part of the world, in the same bed. And that evening, we learned a new language. We just grunted at each other. Can I get a witness, anybody? It's true. And the next day, we started talking, and she told me a story that chilled my blood. She said, yesterday, I was so tired of just the blow-ups and all the stuff, the arguing. She said that I packed my clothes, put a note in the box, and I left. It got my attention, because as a pastor, at least back then, you lose your marriage, you can lose your whole job. Because you can't be an example to the believers if your stuff is shaky. But I loved her, and I said, let's talk about it. What's really the problem? She said to me, she says, Freddie Russell, you know what your problem is? She says, you got control issues. It's got to go your way. It's got to be how you see it. I said, no, that's not me. She says, exactly you. And for the first time in that year and a half of our marriage, and by the way, in February 14th, we will celebrate 40 years of marriage. So she stayed with me, She's a glutton for punishment. I don't know. No, it's a good marriage, trust me. And so she said, you have control. And for the first time in my life, I had to stop. And she gave me examples, and I had to see that was the challenge. But sometimes I've been around leaders who have control issues. Control everything. And so so when you have leadership without character, letter I, the problem with control will predominate. And then letter J, the end will justify the means, okay? Okay, here we are. So let's make this thing positive now. Yes. The end justifies the means. Glad my youth elder is here. Andrew, you always be my youth elder. I won't let you grow anymore. As I told Gene, Andrew was my first youth elder in my church at 15 years old. Yes. Here we go, everybody. So now, we're looking now at character-driven leaders, what they are. Every one of these, I pray consistently that I live this out. Here we go. Character-driven leaders are, number one, you've seen this before, character-driven leaders. Everybody, not any kind of leader here. This is not the everyday garden variety leader. I'm talking about a character-driven leader. Character-driven leaders are, number one, willing to stand alone. I mentioned that earlier. Because as a leader, there are times when you're the only one fighting for the cause, and even when no one else steps forward, the leader always does. Murray Rush, in his book, The New Leader, look at this quote in number one. Buckle your seatbelts as I read this quote. Many people look at what they perceive to be the glamour of leadership and decide they want to be leaders. Some even decide they're called to be leaders. They want the respect or the power associated with position of leadership. However, not all of those people realize the tremendous responsibility that goes along with being a leader. And one of the costs you must consider is your willingness to stand alone. It's the price you pay. Here's the second one. Character-driven leaders, not any kind of leader here, character-driven leaders are willing to go against public opinion. And it's not easy to go against public opinion when the drift and the trend is in one direction. It's not easy to go against public opinion when your friends are saying, we need to do this together. But as a character-driven leader, you're willing to go against public opinion. Listen to this, everybody. I'm going to say it 3 times, and on the 3rd time, you're going to get it. Let me get everybody's eye contact on this one. 3 times, I'm going to say it. On the 3rd time, you'll get it. As a leader, if you need them, you can't lead them. Say it again. If you need them, you can't lead them. Here's the 3rd. If you need people to make you feel good about your leadership, you can't lead them. Because everything in your DNA will be trying to keep them, even when you may need to stand alone and make a decision. I just gave you one, guys. This is the next level I just gave you. If you need people to make you feel good about you as a leader, you cannot lead those people. Because you would cut corners to keep them. You will compromise to keep them on your side. And I've seen leaders who need people so much that they cannot make the tough decisions and the difficult calls. Because if you need them, you can't lead them. So public opinion at the bottom. Public opinion, it can be valuable, but it can also be fickle. And ask Jesus about that. Because on Thursday, they were saying, Hosanna to the King, and laying palm branches, and he was riding in the city on a donkey. And on Friday, they were saying what? Crucify him. Public opinion is valuable, but it can shift on you. It's fickle. You can't set your clock by this stuff. Turn your page. Character-driven leaders, not any kind of leader, but character-driven leaders are willing to risk failure. Yes, they are. They go try something, and they try it, and they don't always have a clear path that's going to work out. But character-driven leaders are willing to risk failure. Look at this quote on the number 3. It says this: in 1862, in the midst of the American Civil War, Abraham Lincoln was under attack from all sides: the enemy, the North, the press, his own cabinet, the populace, or the people. But in those dark days, I love this. Lincoln said, I expect to maintain this contest until successful, or till I die, or I'm conquered, or my term expires, or Congress or the country forsakes me. I'm willing to take the stand, and I'm willing to risk failure. Look at the note on that quote. It says, the major difference between achieving people and average people, John Maxwell says, is their response to what? Failure. How many of you have failed before at something? And how you respond to it is going to make a difference how you're going to soar past it. And in leadership, guys, there are times when it's going to fall flat on its face. There are times it's not going to work out. There are times, and it's a blinding glimpse of the obvious, where you're going to hit the wall on some stuff. But do you quit? Do you give up? Do you reverse? Do you walk away? Do you say, I'm not going to try it again? I'm not going to try anything. Because if I try, I may fail. But listen, everybody, if you try, you may fail. But if you fail, you may learn, and you try again, you may succeed. But you will never do anything unless there's an inherent recognition that you may fail. So, I told you at the beginning, this company I went out and started, it was the potential of it failing was much more than succeeding, because around 75% of every new business fails in the first couple of years. But sometimes in life, you got to go take a flyer and try something, even though you know you could fail with it. And as I mentioned at the top here, some of you never went back to school because you said, I may fail. Some of you never tried to go do the business because you thought you may fail. And some of you are stuck right now because you think, I may fail. But character-driven leaders are willing to risk failure. Number 4, character-driven leaders are masters of their emotions. Masters of their emotions. Solomon says this, a wise man controls his temper. He knows that anger causes mistakes. Look at me, everyone. In your life, no one can make you mad. No one can make you upset. You must always choose to be mad. You must choose to be upset. You can never say, you made me mad. No, they didn't. You chose it. Because I have the ability, and you have the ability, to choose your response in every situation. And so if you're in meetings, you're losing your cool? No, that's unacceptable. Why? Because you're choosing that. No one pushed the button. That's you. By the way, everybody, what I'm saying works in marriage as well. You don't blow up and start cussing your husband out. You get real nasty. You choose the response in every situation. And as a leader, more than anyone else, we got to have good emotional maturity to be able to manage our responses in situations. And that's leadership 101 right there. So look at the note on the number 4 there. Letter A, effective leaders keep their emotions under control. Yes, they do. Letter B, good leaders strive to be guided by facts and principles. And then number 3 is out of control emotions results in errors in judgment. When you're mad, you can't think straight. You overplay your hand. You end up saying things you regret. I have a little note there on the number 10. When you lose control in a meeting, you may win, but you'll regret it in the morning. Yes, you will. Number 5, character-driven leaders strive to remain above reproach. Character-driven leaders. Not any kind of leader here, everybody. Everyone can't go to this level of leadership. Some folks stop at a lower level. But those who are moving towards character-driven leadership, they strive to remain above reproach. They do. In their moral lives, they remain above reproach. Listen, everybody. Listen to this. Satan flaunts the pleasure sometimes. He flaunts the pleasure while he hides the price tag. And there's always a price tag. In your financial dealings, there's always a price tag. And how you relate to people in terms of an ethical way, there's always a price tag. And so as a character-driven leader, you strive, you work at. Nathan, you push it. Pat, you push it. Giselle, you push it to remain above reproach in your private life that I mentioned earlier, in your public life, in your private life, also in your inner life. That's why that part of your life that only God can see needs to be in alignment, because it's going to mess you up in your private life and it will explode in your public life every single time. So when Bill Clinton jacked up, guess what, everybody? That stuff was already meandering in his inner life. And what we saw just didn't happen that day. They got public. That's why you work at staying above reproach in everything. Look at the next one here. That is number what? No. You want to stay above reproach. Here it is at the bottom. I just referenced A, stay above reproach in your public life, private life, letter B, and C, in your inner life. In your inner life. Number 6, character-driven leaders are willing to say no at times, even when you want to say yes. Let's repeat what I mentioned earlier. Because the no is always for the sake of the yes. It's my character here, guys, as a leader. Number seven is this, and that is Character-driven leaders are willing to make decisions others don't want to make. You're willing to make decisions. Because remember I said earlier, one of the things that leaders must excel at, that is in making decisions. That's what we do. So I put together a few years ago what I call the 4 F's of decision making. When you have to make a decision, here it is. Figure out what you want. Find out who you need. Formulate a strategy to make it happen. And then facilitate an environment for implementation. Figure out what you want. Find out who you need. Formulate a strategy to make it happen. And then facilitate an environment for implementation. Number 8. Character-driven leaders are never content with the average, but always strive for the best. As soon as you write that, put your pen down, because I'm going to spend a few minutes here. Character-driven leaders, look at me everybody, are never content with the average, but they always strive for the best. Look at this quote by Chuck Swindoll on the number 8. He says, the world is full of folks who would quickly give up. Their favorite words are, why try, give up, we can't do that. Nobody ever does those things. Like rats in a sewer pipe, their whole focus is limited to a tight radius of don'ts, won'ts, can'ts, and quits. But periodically, we bump into a few refreshing souls who've decided that they aren't going to live in the swamp of the status quo or run scared of being different, even though others will always say, it can't be done. Those who aim high, I love this stuff, are strong-willed ego types who refuse to be bothered by the negativism and skepticism of the majority. They're the same ones who believe that mediocrity must be confronted, and that confrontation must first take place in the mind, the seed plot of endless and limited possibilities. Now, I hope you can handle what I'm about to tell you about it. There are 6,000 churches and companies in the North American division of the Seventh Adventist Church in this country, inclusive of Bermuda and Guam and Canada. A good 2/3 of the churches in this country who are Adventists, black, white, Asian, Hispanic, Indian, are mediocre. Mediocre. You walk into them and you don't, you just think you just walk into any place. Back in the days when they were doing bulletins, you have the bulletins that going downhill and uphill, ain't half printed. You bring your kids to Sabbath school, and you got some teacher who would have looked at it that morning for the first time, not in looking at it at church, they're looking at what they're teaching the kids, and just sitting there reading the kids. It's unquality. You got Path in the club that's just done in a mediocre way. You get elders who come to the pulpit, they're messing up, they can't even pronounce the names, and you say, come on, guys. Come on. There's this thing of mediocrity that cannot exist. And you need to make up your mind right here, and not that you do anything mediocre here, but I suspect some things are. And the thing is, you're making your mind as leaders in this room, as I referenced earlier, you will do nothing that bespeaks a mediocrity in any way. When folk walk into Mt Tahoma, everything is quality. I counted a lot of great stuff here. Everything is quality. The leaders are on their point. The leaders know what they're doing. They're rallying around Pastor, anything else we can do to make sure it's going to run well the day. Your visitors walk in. They know they're welcome. They know, fist bump it all. Glad to have you here this morning. When I drive by, I drove by churches before in this country, and the bushes ain't cut. Place needs painting. Sign is barely, and you say, come on, guys. And what you settle is that when it comes to this church, nothing happens on any level of mediocrity. And it's the people in this room who are on the leadership team in this room, on the leadership team of this church, you make it happen. When it comes time to your meetings, you show up on time. When it comes time to your meetings, you make sure that you're prepared. What you don't sit back and just be online in the meeting and you're looking at TV and the thing is you're in there, you engage, you're making sure we're moving together as a team, and that everything we do is quality. You got one of the largest food distribution ministries in the city of Tacoma. The thing is you did so well yesterday, it's all quality. Folk drive by, you go other places, stuff. When you come here, I don't know what it is about it. It's a different level. We get back in church, hopefully it will come someday. We'll be back in here. The thing is that folk are walking, that's an atmosphere. Because remember, everything you do it as unto the Lord. Because ultimately, that's who you're serving. Now, before I said, turn to your partner and say, I'm halfway enjoying this, turn to them now and say, this was pretty good. Let them know on both sides, if you would. I heard 4 people. I will play my hand on that one there. Here we go, everybody. Number nine. Almost finished. We said we're going to get you out of here at 1 o'clock. That's in 3 minutes. Winning of character-driven leaders. Everyone shout out loud. Character-driven leaders. Character-driven leaders are willing to sacrifice personal interests for the good of the group. And so you do 3 things as a leader at the bottom of your page. You lead your people, you love your people, and you lift your people. That's what we do as leaders. Because we put the people before ourselves, especially those on your team. And then number 10, character-driven leaders are willing to work harder to keep their lives in balance. In balance. Look at the note of the number 10, because we're ending here. It is easy to get so caught up with leading that you spend all your energy and time leading people, leaving no time for yourself or your family. That is one of the reasons we are seeing more and more divorced leaders. They tend to get so caught up, involved in leadership functions of their ministries or their businesses or their lives that their personal and home life suffers. You must learn to relax and enjoy life outside of your leadership role. Now put your pens down, your papers down. I'd like to get your eye contact as we end here. This is the hierarchy of how it works. God is first in your life. If you're married, your spouse is second. If your kids are living at home, your kids are third. And the 4th thing is church. You don't want the church to become your beau or your mistress. You can't say if your kid, if the stuff happening at home, well, I can't stay home today. I got to get out to the church. Because if you invert those priorities, then you default as a leader and you take away your credibility, and the only thing you got as a leader is your credibility, because if home is coming apart and you're serving down here, then what? Stephen Covey says it this way. Every single day, and this works in the other part of your life as well, he says every single day, people are trying to climb the ladder of success, trying to get to the top of the ladder. They sacrifice their kids, they sacrifice their families, they sacrifice their health, because it's all about trying to get to the top of the ladder. He says, but on reaching the top of the ladder, they discover that the ladder has been leaning against the wrong wall. And what you don't want in your life, and as a leader, tragically, is to look up one day, you've gotten to the top of the ladder, but it's leaning against the wrong wall. I cannot tell you over the last 2 days how much I've enjoyed being with you. God bless you as you take it to an entirely different level. I want you now to stand right where you are. I want to tell you a story. I've told this story many times, but I want to tell it to you while you're standing. Some years ago, when pastoring in Baltimore, I got tired of going to prayer meeting, pre-pandemic. The average attendance at my prayer meeting was 8 to 15. Because I used to travel for the General Conference around the world, training their leaders, and I've trained leaders on every continent in the world except one, and that is Antarctica. And on my bucket list, I plan to go down there to teach leadership to the penguins. I know they need it. And as I travel around the world church, I always find myself to go to prayer meeting. And in most churches I found around the world, all of them, should I say, no matter what the culture was, what the country was, what the continent was, it was between 8 and 15 people or less, most times less than that at prayer meeting. So I got to Baltimore, and same thing was happening. I was trying all kind of things to get prayer meeting attendance up. I would have nights of where I would start a brand new series, and for a week or two, folk would come, it would die. I would do all kind of unique things. I had family nights where we would have soup and sandwiches before prayer meeting. They'd come for the first eat, get the soup and sandwiches. Some of them went home afterwards. Defeated the whole purpose of that. Negroes. Okay, anyway. Man, we have unique stuff on. We have a number of different classes on Wednesday night. You pick your choice, your interest. For about 2 weeks of the work, by the third week, always back down. 8 to 15. I was so discouraged. People would give the same prayer meetings, Pastor Lane, the same testimonies at every prayer meeting. Little old ladies will get up and say, well, I remember back when the Lord blessed me, I hadn't heard the thing about 37,000 times. And so I could lip sync it. And I used to come in and say, well, Sister Jones, so this is what happened, right? So-and-so, so-and-so, so. Trying to signal her, I've heard this. And she said, yeah, Pastor, you got it. And we're going to finish it anyhow. It was like God had not answered prayers in years. I was just holding to the prayers before. And I got so weary that I didn't want to pray anymore. Then I heard of a church up in New York called the Brooklyn Tabernacle. I knew it had a great choir, but I was hearing about their prayer meeting. And one Tuesday evening, a friend of mine, Pastor Earl started, who's at the Church of the Oranges in New Jersey. He was pastoring in Virginia at the time. He came up, and we decided to travel to Brooklyn Tabernacle from Baltimore to New York. We left that afternoon, and we traveled up to 95 and the Delaware Memorial Bridge onto the New Jersey Turnpike. Does anyone know where I am right now? Okay. I thought Andrew knows. Anybody else know where I am? Okay. New Jersey Turnpike. And we came into New York in the Holland Tunnel. When you come out the Holland Tunnel, you end up on Flatbush, where you can cross the Manhattan Bridge and just travel right into Flatbush in Brooklyn. That was the time when the Brooklyn Tabernacle was on Flatbush, and that church said about 2,000. That church now sits about 5,000. We got there, of course, in the city, there's no parking lots. And so we had to find space on one little side street. We walked around and walked into the building at 7:20 for a 7 o'clock service. Now, if you walked into my church at that time at 7:20 for a 7 o'clock service, you still have 15,000 pews to yourself. We got there, place jam-packed. 2,000 people. We couldn't get in the sanctuary. We had to sit in plastic chairs in the lobby. And the atmosphere there in that church that night on prayer meeting night, I can see the worship service on prayer meeting night. The praying, it was so powerful. Well, I have the spiritual gift of boldness, and I didn't want to sit in the lobby. I wanted to be in the sanctuary. So I went to the usher and said, ma'am, we are 2 pastors up from Baltimore. Could we stand along the walls? The walls are already standing room back. She says, you're pastors? She says, I pastor love pastors. She says, follow me. I got Earl. And she ushered us all the way down to the front and put us some chairs beside the pew. We had little chairs on the aisle. And the place is just going in with God. You felt God over the room. And so I'm sitting there in the pew, and I look up at the choir loft, and the choir loft is full. And I said, that's the Brooklyn Tabernacle Choir. I also have the spiritual gift of cynicism. And so when I looked at the choir, I said, if I had the Brooklyn Tabernacle Choir in my church on Wednesday night, I'd pack it out too. That's the secret sauce right there. It's the choir. And then I turned to the little Hispanic woman sitting beside me. I says, ma'am, is that the Brooklyn Tabernacle Choir? She looked at me real quick. She says, no, sir. That's not the Brooklyn Tabernacle Choir. And like John the Revelator, I said, well, who are they? And she says, those are the prayer warriors. At a certain time, they came out of the choir loft. And I referenced this a bit yesterday, or in my seminar yesterday in Nashville, is that they came out. And remember the Bible says in Romans 8 that we do not know how to pray as we ought. But the Spirit himself intercedes. And the Spirit is the only one who knows the mind and the will of God. And what the Spirit will do is that there are times you pray and you ask the Spirit to tell you what to pray. And these guys came out of the choir loft. Men had their prayed with men and women with women. No craziness in there. And this brother came out, laid his hands on me, and I saw Romans 8 alive. That brother began to pray things that only God would know. He was so, I've never been prayed so up to that point, so on point with the prayer before. And I'm sitting in there and this is going on and I'm saying, God, something is missing in my church. And then it hit me what the Bible says. Jesus says, my house shall be called a house of prayer. Not a house of potlucks. Not a house of preaching. Because in the Adventist church, we have traveled 1,000,000 miles to hear a good sermon. But you call prayer meeting and no one may show up. That's a mixed up values right there. And don't get me wrong, preaching is good because it's the foolishness of the preaching that will save. However, that's not the main thing. It's when we come to the cross. I think Jim Cymbala said it one time. He says, if you can beat the devil on prayer meeting night, you can beat him every other night of the week. But most of our churches don't pray. We rather delegate it to the prayer ministry. So that night we got back in Earl's car and we were driving back down to New Jersey. It's a 4-hour trip, half trip back down there. And I just go to sleep on the way back, coming that long trip at night. I stayed awake and I just prayed the way back. I said, God, if you get me back to my church in Baltimore, Miracles Temple in Baltimore, if you get me back, I pray we will never be the same. And that Sabbath morning, I walked into the pulpit. And there's some Sabbath mornings when a pastor comes in, he or she has a certain look on their face. There's an anointing on them that you had to stay back that day because you know God is on them. And no one spoke to me. They just saw it. And I walked in the pulpit that morning, and I said to them, I said, if you come out to prayer meeting this coming Wednesday night, prayer meeting will never be the same. Well, that Wednesday night, we had about 25 people in prayer meeting from our usual 8:15. And that first night, we began to do one thing, many things, but one main thing is, what are you praying for? And people begin to say, that's where I need God at, right here. And we pray over those things. That next Wednesday night, we went from about 24, 25 to about 40. And everyone who was there that first night, everything, I said, are there any praise reports? Almost everyone had a praise report. This is what God did. Because one of the things that will pack or grow prayer meeting more than anything else is what? Answer prayer. And we were saying, God, we want you to answer prayer. Answer us, God. And he did it. We went from 40 to 60, 60 to 80, 80 to 100 and something on Wednesday night. And, of course, the church was not only getting benefits from prayer meeting, but the church was just packing out on all levels. We in an older church. Maddie and Andrew have been there on the corner of 4th and Lombard in the poor section of the city. And we began to pack that thing out. On Sabbath morning, folk were up and down the streets, 2 services, up and down stairs. God bless us, did a larger worship center, and we kept growing. And the average attendance and the average age of prayer meeting was between 25 and 29 years old. We went from 100 and something, to 200, to 300, to 400, and sometimes on Wednesday, 400 to 500 people in prayer meeting, calling on God, crying out to God. We began to see miracles all over the place, and God shifted my ministry at that point when I made the main thing, right there. And I said, God, we had people come to visit our church. They saw the growth, and they would come in and say, so Freddie, what did y'all do here? I said, we start to pray. Yeah, all right. But what did you really do? I said, we prayed and became sin. No, dude, you're talking to me. What really changed it? I said, we became a house of prayer. We really did. I saw so much cancer healed. I couldn't believe it. So, I said, look at what God is doing. One lady, young lady, because our average age was 25 to 29, and these young adults were bringing their colleagues from their offices to prayer meeting. It was powerful. We baptized more people at a prayer meeting than any other service. At a prayer meeting. One young lady came in one night, and she was crying, and she came up to the mic, and the music is playing, and she says, "Folk, I'm in trouble. I have not told anybody this." She says, "But I have a bill of $9,000 that I owe the IRS, and it's that I got to pay it tomorrow, and I have nothing. I've been asking God. I've been calling folk. I can't get it." And I said, "Now, folk, one of the prayers that God answers more than any kind of other prayer is that He answers the prayers of the desperate. God cannot resist the desperate." Let me give you a secret about God. This is truly a secret about God that you need to hold on to. God is attracted to weakness. Yes, He is. And she gave her testimony that night. She was crying, places crying, and we all just stretched our hands and prayed over her. And at the end of the prayer, God impressed me to take an offering that night, this prayer meeting. And $150 in prayer meeting. But that night I felt impressed. I said, you've heard this, and God's going to use us to answer this prayer tonight. I felt impressed to take an offering. We needed $8,000. Usually made $152, $300 on Wednesday night. That night we took a cash offering and checks offering that night of $13,000. We gave her the $8,000 that night, put the rest of it in the ministry. It just kept happening over and over and over again. I said, "God, why didn't you tell me this before all the years of banging my head?" There's nothing that shifts the atmosphere, but it gets past just praise and worship, albeit important. Preaching and potlucks, and albeit super important. But all of a sudden, it's not just the prayer band that's praying. The church says, there's a night of the week we're going to dedicate for prayer. And I believe that it has to start with the leaders of the church. That when Pastor calls prayer meeting on Tuesday or Wednesday night online, I think it probably is that it's filled with the leadership team. It's filled with the leaders. Because if the leaders don't feel any need to get the prayer meeting and to pray, what about the people? It starts with the leaders. And that's something you begin to do what the Bible says, to pray one for another, to begin to intercede over each other, begin to pray for matters and say, "God, you can shift this, you can change this. God, you can make this happen." My challenge to you, Pastor, everything that we've said today, as Jesus says, my house should be called a house of prayer. Andrew's brother leads prayer out in Northeastern Conference, doing an amazing job. That's this whole thing that he's driven by as well. He used to come to our prayer meeting. When he was coming to Miracle as a member, he would come to prayer meeting. My house should be called a house of prayer. I'd like you to come into don't hold hands, but just a circle in this section here, if you can. Come a little closer, everybody. And let's form a circle as we can. You may want, in fact, let's do it here. Let's form the circle around this section right here, all the way around. And we don't have to touch each other. This section here. Let's just all come over. Sound AV guys, first, come on and join us on this one here. and just stretch it all the way around. Yeah, go always to the back, and then stretch it around.